But today or right now, I wanted to talk about communication tools. So there's a lot of things that goes on in a project. A lot of people, of course, uh, coming together and communicating, but especially now, everyone's going to be virtual. It's so much harder. There's so many more obstacles when communicating virtually. I mean, you guys probably have already experienced this. When you're texting someone, you might have a different experience when you're physically next to each other talking. You can read body language, you can see their mouth moving, you can see their eyes where they're looking. You can tell if they're not paying attention or not. But when you're texting, it's a lot different, right? It's a lot different. You don't see eyes. All you see is messages. And when you're texting, there's an option to reread it and to change your message and to make it so that it's perfect. And so it's a lot different when communicating online. So this is a problem, right, in the world because all teams have to all of a sudden start communicating online. And especially for people who don't understand technology that well, this is a huge problem for them. So today, I just wanted to talk about the different communication tools that you will be using in your teams. And just to give you guys an idea of what we're doing for FishTank, we're going to be using Google Classroom as kind of like a one-stop shop for all FishTank information. So pretty much on our Google Classroom, you'll be able to see announcements, see training material, and you will also be submitting work through Google Classroom. And this is very important. We won't be responsible for your team's communication tools. Google Classroom isn't to communicate in between teams. So the teams of 2 to 4 aren't going to be communicating through Google Classroom. I mean, there's just no way to communicate in Google Classroom. So you guys will be responsible for setting up your own communication tools or tool to communicate with each other. You guys will be scheduling your own meetings. You'll be meeting with each other on these certain tools that I'll explain in a bit. So these are the recommended tools as shown on the screen that we would like you to use. Of course, this is not what you need to use, right? It all depends on who has experience in what. Like if have experience with Microsoft Teams, Google Hangouts, Discord, Slack, tell your team. In the next 20 minutes, you'll have the opportunity to talk with your team about what communication tools they have used or what what you know, right? So there's these options as well. So the options on the screen are in the red boxes are kind of like recommended tools that we want you to use. If you would like to text, email, and Zoom, we recommend using all three. And again, this is important. Google Classroom isn't going to be used for team communication. You guys are responsible for setting up your own means of communication and scheduling yourself. Okay, so I'm going to get into when choosing the communication tools, what kind of things do you need to think of? So there's two main features when you want to communicate with your team. One is you want to be able to chat offline. So in the case of texting, email, and Zoom, all those three things combined, you want to be able to chat with each other offline, right? In Zoom meetings, it's scheduled. You can't chat on Zoom. I mean, you might be able to. I think they have a chat feature, but it's a little weird. Texting and email is probably what most people are used to when messaging each other at midnight, right? And then the second thing that we want you to have is the ability to video conference each other. So you want to be able to see each other like we're doing here. That's why you would use Zoom. And the other boxes that I have here, Google Hangouts, Microsoft Teams, Discord, and Slack, those 4 programs are what NexTech have used and what we can provide support for. So if you have any questions or want to set that up, you can ask us. For Discord and Slack, you do have to be 13 and older for Discord and 16 and older for Slack. But of course, you can use Microsoft Teams and Google Hangouts if you're under that. So these are the ones we recommend. And Google Hangouts, Microsoft Teams, Discord, and Slack, you'll be able to do both chat offline and video conference. So when talking with your team, choose what you want. We'll have recommended tools here. But of course, if you guys prefer something else, you go ahead. But just make sure that you have those two main things, right? Chatting offline and video conference. So Google Classroom is where we're going to put all the information. And later today, we're going to send you an invite link to our Google Classroom. And there is a video on how to use Google Classroom in the link. Or when you join Google Classroom, we'll have instructions to join, and then you'll be able to join Google Classroom. We didn't want you to join now because there may be technical issues for this presentation. So we have a little bit of time afterwards to join Google Classroom. And of course, ask us questions if you do have them.
Hey FishTank teams, in this video I'm going to show you how to navigate some of our FishTank design competition resources, and we're going to be starting here on our official FishTank website, which you can find at nextechcompetition.org. On the website you can find information on our challenge categories as well as prize categories and answers to some of our most frequently asked questions. Next, we're going to pop over to our Facebook page where you can like us at NexTech Hawaii FishTank and our Instagram page at NexTech_Hawaii. And we hope that all participants will keep us informed of your progress throughout the competition using our social media. One of the most important resources for this competition will be our Google Classroom. We sent a link to your official Google email, so go ahead and check that and click on the invite link. You should be redirected to a page that asks you to join the class. If you have any problems accessing this page, we can also directly send you our class code and you can add the classroom that way. So once you join our Google Classroom, you should see a screen that looks like this. And at the top of the page, you'll see 3 tabs, a stream, classwork, and people tabs. So our stream tab is where you will see a thread of all of our updates for the competition. In our upcoming box here on the left, will find any upcoming assignments and due dates for those tasks to be turned in. If you go to classwork, this is where you will find any submitted and unsubmitted work that your team has done or is in the process of doing. And clicking on the People tab, you'll see our Kumu and your classmates. So right now, nobody's joined yet, but once we add everybody to our Google Classroom, you'll be able to see a list of other participants in the competition. But don't worry, only you and your team will be able to see your work in this classroom because it is a competition after all. So if we come over to the 3 bars in the upper left corner, you'll see a to-do list, which is where all the assignments will show up. And if you have any questions about which class we're in, our classroom is called FishTank 2021 NexTech Competition. All right, so you can just go ahead and click on the link here to go back to our home screen. So I hope this tutorial was helpful and you can email us with any questions.
I'm gonna start talking about a little bit about collaboration tools, and I'm gonna explain it in the in-depth video when you join Google Classroom. But there's this need to store your work, right? When you're working on something, you need to be able to store it, you need to be able to edit it and share it with your other team. And so we recommend using Google Classroom. There's probably no other platform out there like Google Classroom, or not Google Classroom, Google Drive. Google Drive is what we want you to use. And it's easy to submit work through Google Classroom. So use Google Drive when you're editing, creating, and managing work, especially sharing it with your other team. And there's, of course, Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets. So these collaboration tools, we highly recommend using Google Drive, especially when working with Google Classroom.